It was shortly after 5 p.m. on a tranquil Monday in Sydney when Teresa Marsden's phone buzzed with a text. "I love you. I'm sorry. I'm not happy." The message was from her daughter Renee, who then fell silent. Frantic calls went unanswered, leading to a desperate search as daylight faded. By nightfall, police discovered Renee's car parked at the edge of a notorious cliff. But what truly transpired that day? What or who drove her to such a breaking point? The truth was not only tragic, but also disturbingly twisted. Renee Marsden was born on October 15, 1992, in Sydney, New South Wales, a vibrant city celebrated for its stunning harbor and iconic opera house. She was the daughter of Teresa and Hamie. However, when Renee was just 2 years old, her parents separated. Life took another turn when Teresa met Mark Marsden. By the time Renee was 6, she and her mother had moved in with Mark, and in 2000, Teresa and Mark married, forming a new family. They welcomed 3 more children, Luke, Jake, and Monique, Renee's younger half-siblings. The household was described as close-knit and affectionate, where Renee flourished in the warmth of a loving family, particularly cherishing her bond with her mother. At 18, Renee made a significant choice. She legally adopted the surname Marsden, honoring the man who had raised her. At that stage in her life, she was a bright and outgoing young woman, known for her cheerful demeanor, kindness, and infectious smile. Friends and family described her as warm-hearted and socially active, leaving a positive impression wherever she went. Renee maintained a long-standing friendship with Camilla Sedan, a classmate from her early school years. However, their relationship grew increasingly complicated during adolescence, marked by rising tensions and conflicts, some even physical. Renee confided in her mother about an incident where Camilla had pulled her hair and struck her, leaving her frightened. Despite this, the complexities of their friendship endured. Camilla was known to be possessive, particularly regarding Renee. Over time, rumors circulated about a brief romantic involvement between the two, though nothing was ever officially confirmed. Eventually, their bond weakened, but they reconnected years later. As Renee transitioned into adulthood, she pursued training as both a receptionist and a hairdresser, ultimately dedicating herself to the latter. Described as diligent, joyful, and eager about her future, she even shared plans to move out and live with a cousin. Her life seemed to be unfolding with optimism and clear goals. Around 2008, while working at a beauty salon, Renee met Angus Jong, who was drawn to her not just for the salon services, but for her charm. His visits became frequent under the guise of needing haircuts, and their connection deepened into a passionate relationship. They even drafted a written contract outlining their future together, envisioning 4 children and a Labrador. Angus later recalled those days as the best of his life. However, in April 2010, their romance took a devastating turn when Renee discovered a series of text messages suggesting a possible betrayal. Angus denied any infidelity, but hurt and heartbroken, Renee chose not to believe him and ended the relationship, leaving her emotionally shattered. Weeks passed and Renee remained visibly distressed. Then came an unexpected twist. Camilla, noticing her friend's emotional pain, offered a solution. She wanted to introduce Renee to a 24-year-old man named Braden Spittery. Camilla claimed she had dated Braden long ago, but their relationship had ended amicably. Renee, without questioning it, accepted the introduction. Camilla showed her a photograph of herself with Braden, and Renee expressed interest. Shortly after, Camilla provided Braden's phone number and social media handles. Thus began a new chapter, one built entirely on messages and digital affection. Although the couple had never met in person, their online romance blossomed quickly. Tragedy struck, or so Renee believed, when Braden claimed he had been involved in a horrific motorcycle accident that resulted in the death of his best friend, who had been riding as a passenger. He explained that due to his involvement in the crash, he had been sentenced to 2 years in prison. Yet he insisted that his wealthy family had managed to smuggle a phone into the facility, allowing him to continue texting her regularly, even though phone calls and visits were off-limits. He claimed he had voluntarily given up visitation rights for a lighter sentence. To Renee, this seemed strange, but love can cloud even the clearest logic. Despite never hearing his voice or seeing him in person, she clung to the digital companionship that had lifted her from heartbreak. In 2011, Renee finally confided in her mother, Teresa, about her relationship with Braden. Although Teresa felt uneasy about her daughter dating someone who claimed to be in prison, her discomfort faded when she saw how genuinely happy Renee appeared. Seeing her daughter light up when discussing Braden gave Teresa a reason to support the relationship, even if her instincts told her something felt off. However, that support was soon tested. One day, Teresa messaged Renee on social media, only to receive a reply from Braden instead. This intrusion unsettled Teresa, prompting her to firmly state that she wished to speak with Renee, not him. It was then she discovered that her daughter had given Braden full access to her personal account, raising red flags. Tensions escalated when Teresa liked a photo of Angus, Renee's ex-boyfriend, on social media. Braden immediately sent her accusatory messages, questioning her loyalty and even suggesting she was a poor mother for maintaining any virtual contact with Angus. The relationship between Renee and Braden lasted about 18 months, during which their connection intensified. They began making plans to marry as soon as he was released from prison. At 20 years old, Renee dreamed of her wedding day, telling friends and family that Braden was her soulmate. In January 2012, convinced of their future together, Renee went to a tattoo parlor with Camilla and had Braden's name inked across her chest. However, soon after, things began to unravel. Braden's behavior shifted. He became increasingly jealous and possessive. Renee, once joyful and open, grew distant and uneasy. Still, when Braden told her he would be released in August that year, her hope was rekindled. But when the date arrived and he wasn't released, Renee was devastated. Sources close to her reported that the emotional weight became so heavy that she attempted to take her own life by overdosing on pills. It was a terrifying moment for her family. Teresa and Mark recognized how fragile she had become and encouraged her to end the relationship. Eventually, Renee agreed, deciding to walk away from Braden and rebuild her life. Shortly after, she began dating a coworker named Ian, a man 12 years her senior. The relationship seemed promising until Braden's presence resurfaced. Ian began receiving threatening messages from Braden and warned Renee that she needed to cut all ties with her ex once and for all. But Renee couldn't let go. She still believed Braden was the love of her life. She ended things with Ian and chose to stay in contact with Braden. On the morning of Monday, August 5, 2013, everything appeared normal on the surface. Renee got up, followed her usual routine, and headed to work. She returned home in the early afternoon, just like any other day. However, Teresa noticed something was off. Her daughter seemed withdrawn, irritable, and emotionally distant. Concerned, she asked if everything was all right. Renee simply replied yes and retreated to her bedroom. A short while later, Teresa received a chilling message from Braden, urging her to look after her daughter, claiming that Renee had made threats to harm herself. Alarmed, Teresa rushed to Renee's room. When she showed her the message, Renee acknowledged it, but reassured her mother not to worry, stating that things with Braden were over. Later that evening, Teresa checked in again and found Renee getting ready, doing her makeup. She said she was going out to dinner with friends from work to distract herself and clear her mind. Though uneasy, Teresa accepted the explanation. What followed shattered her world. Around 5 p.m., Teresa received a text from Renee, a message no parent should ever receive. Her daughter expressed love, apologized, and confessed she wasn't truly happy. Panic set in. Teresa called her daughter repeatedly, but Renee didn't answer. Desperate, She rushed to the home of one of Renee's close friends and shared the message. The friend suggested they alert the police immediately. Without hesitation, Teresa notified authorities, who began tracking Renee's phone in an effort to locate her. As night fell, no updates came, and the Ibar silence was unbearable. In search of answers, Teresa called Camilla, hoping she might know something. Camilla admitted she had received a strange message from Renee as well, one that echoed sentiments of love and apology. When Camilla asked what was happening, Teresa revealed that Renee was missing. Camilla responded that she would go look for her. Along with her mother, she picked up Teresa, and together they searched places where Renee might have gone, but every location was empty. Later that evening, around 9 p.m., police called with an update. They had found Renee's car parked near a Cliffside area in Sydney. Teresa and Mark rushed to the scene, calling out for her in the darkness, clinging to the hope of a response. For 2 hours, they scoured the surroundings, desperate to find her nearby. Eventually, with no sign of her, they returned home, but not for long. At first light on August 6th, they were back at the cliff's edge, determined to find their daughter. This time, Teresa noticed something chilling, a pair of shoes left near the edge of the cliff, unmistakably belonging to Renee. Overwhelmed with emotion, she bent down to pick them up. But before she could process what she held, a nearby police officer took the shoes from her hands, placed them back where they had been found, and asked her to step away from the scene. By then, authorities were convinced of what had happened. They believed Renee had ended her life at that very spot, just as others had tragically done before her. The cliff was known for such acts. Officers gently encouraged the Marsdens to go home, explaining their belief that Renee had made a permanent decision. No body was ever recovered. However, surveillance footage from a nearby camera seemed to confirm the theory. In the video, Renee can be seen approaching the fence at the cliff's edge. She crosses over it, walks slowly to the precipice, then backs away. She appears to send a series of messages from her phone, throws the device out of frame, and then walks again toward the edge, disappearing from view. This devastating revelation was too painful for her family to accept. The thought that Renee had been so broken that she saw no other way out was unimaginable. Grief-stricken and desperate for answers, Teresa and Mark blamed one person, Braden. They sent him a message, holding him responsible for the torment and despair that had consumed their daughter, but he never replied. Left with no other option, they turned to the only person who had known Braden in real life, Camilla Sedan. When questioned, Camilla gave a strange response, claiming that Braden too was suffering. This puzzled Teresa. How did Camilla know that? Camilla asserted that Braden had called her, but the story felt off and inconsistent. When Teresa asked her to provide the phone number to the police, Camilla's demeanor changed instantly. She became agitated and began making bizarre statements, even accusing Renee of being violent and manipulative, claiming she had been the victim all along and that her daughter needed psychological help. Meanwhile, police continued their investigation. Renee's phone had vanished. She had thrown it into the ocean that day. However, inside her parked car, they found something else. Alongside a collage of photos featuring Braden, they discovered Renee's previous cell phone, which she had replaced just a couple of months before her disappearance. Officers returned it to her parents with her other belongings, unaware it would soon become the key to unraveling everything. Luke, Renee's 13-year-old brother, had a friend with tech skills. Together, they managed to access the old device using software. What they found was astonishing. More than 11,000 text messages exchanged over a 3-month span from March to June of 2013. The messages included exchanges between Renee and Braden, as well as between Renee and Camilla. Mark, determined to make sense of the data, began analyzing the messages. He created a spreadsheet and cross-referenced the times and dates. That's when something strange emerged. Messages from Camilla and messages from Braden never overlapped. They were always sequential, never simultaneous. A horrifying realization took shape. Mark brought the evidence to the police, who quickly confirmed his suspicions. The messages from Braden and Camilla had originated from two different phones, but from the same building, the same address. Yet Braden had supposedly been incarcerated 2 hours away from Sydney. The truth finally came out. Braden never existed. He was a fabrication, an elaborate deception created and sustained entirely by Camilla. For 18 months, Camilla had manipulated Renee through a fake identity, using two separate phones to maintain the illusion. Why would someone go to such extreme lengths? What could possibly motivate a person to emotionally torment someone they called a best friend? Family members, friends, and others close to the two young women began to speak out. Many recalled Camilla's obsessive behavior, how she would call Renee repeatedly, sometimes up to 20 times in under an hour. In the months leading up to her death, Renee had started to distance herself from Camilla. She confided in Teresa that she was tired of the emotional manipulation and the constant dominance Camilla tried to exert, deciding to end their friendship once and for all. The final act may have been Camilla's revenge. On August 5, 2013, the very day Renee vanished, Camilla sent one last message to her, once again pretending to be Braden. The message was brief and devastating. He was ending the relationship. That digital heartbreak triggered a chain of 91 messages exchanged between them that day. Messages investigators later confirmed, but their content remains a mystery to this day. What is known is that Renee, in a moment of desperation and confusion, called the prison where she believed her boyfriend was incarcerated. Unsurprisingly, there was no record of any inmate named Braden. No one by that name existed in the system. As the Marsden family and the police continued piecing together the timeline of events, their focus returned to Camilla. When first confronted, she denied any involvement. But the mountain of digital evidence, the message logs, the phone records, the surveillance footage, began closing in. Still, Camilla had taken steps to cover her tracks. She destroyed the phone and SIM card used to impersonate Braden, making it nearly impossible to recover key conversations, especially those exchanged on the day Renee took her own life. Despite the technological obstacles, law enforcement ultimately reached a disturbing conclusion. Camilla had manipulated and psychologically abused Renee by creating and maintaining a fictional persona over a prolonged period, a practice now widely known as catfishing. However, at the time in Australia, there were no laws that defined or criminalized this form of identity deception. Because she hadn't extorted Renee or financially benefited from the deception, prosecutors were unable to formally charge her with a crime. This was a devastating blow for the Marsdens, who refused to accept that someone could so methodically destroy another person's life and walk away without consequences. Mark and Teresa Marsden began campaigning to have the case reopened. After 7 painful years, their persistence paid off. In 2020, authorities agreed to hold a formal forensic inquest. Camilla was granted immunity in exchange for the truth, but she remained cold, uncooperative, and unmoved. She admitted to pretending to be Braden, but claimed it was a character she and Renee had created together, an invented boyfriend they supposedly shared. This claim was as bizarre as it was offensive. During the inquest, investigators presented the first message Renee received on August 5th, the one that ended the relationship. Forensic experts testified that this message, sent under Braden's name, was likely the final emotional blow that pushed Renee toward her tragic decision. Then came a haunting piece of history. A school-era email written by Camilla to Renee was read aloud in court. In it, Camilla professed a suffocating obsessive love, stating she was too in love and would chase her if she ever tried to leave. The email painted a chilling portrait of emotional control that had begun years before the catfishing ever started. Despite acknowledging the immense harm Camilla had inflicted, the court concluded that under existing laws, she could not be criminally charged. Her actions, while cruel and psychologically abusive, didn't fall under any specific offense as written in Australian legislation at the time. The outcome sparked outrage, not just from Renee's family, but from members of the public who followed the case. Camilla, they discovered, had since married, had children, changed her appearance, and continued to live nearby, sometimes running into Mark and Teresa in local supermarkets and public places as if nothing had happened. Still, the Marsdens pressed on, transforming their grief into advocacy, pushing for legal reform to protect others from enduring the kind of psychological abuse that had claimed their daughter's life. Eventually, the truth about the photos Camilla had used to portray Braden came to light. They belonged to a man named Cameron Lang. After the story became public, he recognized his image on the news and spoke out, stating he didn't know Camilla at all and believed the photo had been taken years earlier, perhaps during a night out at a bar or club. Somehow, she had taken that fleeting moment and turned it into a persona used to deceive and control her best friend. Renee Marsden's story is not just a case of deception, it's a chilling reminder of how trust can be twisted and how digital manipulation can become emotional abuse. In a world where online relationships are increasingly common, her death stands as a painful wake-up call. Behind every message, every profile, and every smiling photo, there might be a lie. And when the lie becomes a weapon, the consequences can be irreversible. Renee is gone, but her name echoes through the halls of reform. Her story continues to ignite conversations around emotional coercion, psychological control, and the urgent need for legislation to keep pace with modern abuse. Because no one should suffer in silence, and no one should be destroyed by a friend hiding behind a screen. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.